you can have all the information in the world and understand all the complexity. If you cannot distill it down into simple things and be able to communicate it effectively, you will not be an effective coach.
All right, so we're here with Perrin Bear, TTD coach. You've been coaching CrossFit for a lot of years. You've been with us since 2021, so almost 5 years. You put up a post the other day on your Instagram, and you have one of those black and white photos, so it looked serious. Yeah. And tell the audience what it said, because you fooled a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, I was like, I want to put out a post announcing something. If I make it a little dramatic, maybe people will actually read it. I didn't actually think about the black and white thing until after people started pointing it out. But it basically just said, I've been with Training Think Tank since 2021, and I decided I needed a change, which people read those types of things, and you assume I'm going to be leaving the organization. And then just went on to say that I was starting to coach classes again here at our on-site affiliate. And I actually got so many messages, like not only on the post, but like even people like Lydia were texting me like, I was so confused and like so concerned when I first read that.
People saw it and thought you were quitting TTT.
Yes. Yeah. And I was like, oh,
Lydia Fish, right?
Yeah. I was like, I did not mean to have that type of reaction, but it ended up.
You didn't mean to? That wasn't like.
Well, okay. I did.
I was going to say, that's
it was
what
fully
was smart
intentional,
about it.
but
you captured their attention, and now they read the thing you wanted them to.
I didn't mean to. I felt bad scaring people, but no, it ended up being very effective.
So dive into that, because that's the episode. The topic of this episode is coaching classes, really. And so what made you, or dive into why you made that post?
Yeah. So I haven't coached classes in an affiliate since I moved here. So for the last 5 years, the last class I coached would be the end of 2020 when I was still working in Philly at Requisite Fitness. And that gym is actually where I started coaching and started my CrossFit journey back in 2010. So 2010, I started CrossFit. 2011, I got my L1 and started shadowing so I could coach classes. And it was something I wasn't sure if I'd really be good at the time. And I just really, really kind of fell in love with it. Not only coaching, but also competing and learning about the sport. So I coached at CrossFit 2 and 5, which is Requisite Fitness now in Philly, as well as CrossFit Center City from then until 2020, till we moved here. And it was awesome. It was how I started coaching and how I got into CrossFit and kind of immersed myself. And so there was an opportunity to coach some classes here. I mean, I asked Brandy and Travis and Max, I'm like, hey, can I coach some classes? I know we need a little bit fill in. We also have like 2 of our coaches are going to have some babies and stuff. And I've asked to fill in the past, but nobody's taken me up on it. But I just wanted.
Is that just because you missed it?
I missed it, and I also, there's a lot of reasons. So also I needed to renew my CrossFit trainer cert at some point. So
why?
It was going to expire. So they expire every 5 years.
You have to do it because, for like people competing? You have to be the judge or something?
Yeah.
Why did you have to get it?
So now with the judging certifications, assuming they'll use the same rules this year, you have to have an advanced judging certification and you have to have a trainer certification in order to get that.
Just the L1 though, right?
Yes, exactly. But I've done the L1 twice, and I actually ended up doing the L2 again.
Did you get 100 on your test?
Oh, I don't know.
I did.
You did or didn't?
Yeah, I aced it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I don't remember that. So I had to renew my L2, which was good timing because the last time I took it was 2020 in the fall. So
when was the first time you took it?
My first L2?
L1
would be 2011.
And then you took that twice?
I took that twice. I renewed that.
And what year was the second time?
It was probably 5 years after that, so 2016.
Was there a big difference? Or was it pretty much the same?
L1, I don't think has changed very much. Yeah. The L2, I did notice a difference. And so looking back on it, I actually went back and found my photo. And because I was like, I can't remember doing this. And I don't know if I blocked it out, but we were all wearing masks and we were all distanced. And I vaguely remember it being just a little bit awkward going through it, because the L2, in my opinion, is where you really learn how to coach, or I should say, you actually refine your coaching skills. So
do you want to describe to the audience what the difference is?
Yeah. So the L2, I would say, is far less lecture, so sitting at a whiteboard listening to them talk, and far more breakout sessions. So they had all their coaches, and we would switch coaches for each section, but they would teach us how they wanted us to teach specific movements to our own group. And then they would actually coach us and give us feedback. And that is what I found really valuable, because not only am I getting feedback on my own coaching, but I'm watching and listening to feedback of them coaching other coaches.
Yeah.
So we would teach usually one movement. So for me, I taught overhead squat pretty much the whole weekend, which I actually think was good, because it taught me that you can get a lot better at just refining how you're cueing and how you're teaching, seeing, and correcting one thing and like it was with a PVC, right? And I'm like, wow, all these things that I can improve teaching someone an overhead squat with a PVC, imagine what a snatch would be, a ring muscle up. And then when you expand the group, like we had a small group of 5 or 6, sometimes we have classes of 20 plus people. How do you do that? And we actually had an opportunity to watch their staff coach us. Like we had almost 30 people, and watch somebody coach 30 people through a class or 30 people through a movement, and how well they do that. And it's not because they're teaching you all the nuances so that you're the most knowledgeable and you know exactly what's going on. It's actually the opposite. They were very succinct, they were very specific, and the way that they oriented people and how they used their time was extremely efficient. And I was super impressed. But I don't remember what was so different about the L2. I just really enjoyed my experience in this last one. And I was over at 1124 in Marietta, so it was a nice drive.
Good
I could sleep
people.
in my own bed. Yeah, amazing gym. Tyler was there, and he was an awesome host, and it was just a really good experience. And we are kind of in our own bubble here at TTT. I mean, we have an affiliate and classes in the same co-working space, which is phenomenal, and I couldn't see it any other way. But it is also easy to kind of segregate yourself from the affiliate community and not really know what's going on. So that was like another reason. I'm like, man, there's a lot of people that I don't even know their names on the other side of this gym. And that's kind of been one of the hardest parts, like learning everyone's name. And
well, so circle back real quick. So you brought up the L2, and the reason we dove into that was because this played some part in you doing coaching again?
Yeah, I don't actually know if I needed it to coach here.
You just wanted to do that?
Yes.
Yeah.
I wanted to maintain my trainer certificate for sure. Part of that's certainly the judging requirements. And I wanted to take the course again.
Right. So okay, if you coached through 2020 classes, you came on board with us in 2021, and now you're doing one-on-one, mostly remote coaching. Obviously, you have some on-site people. Lydia was here for a long time. Athletes will come into town, and you'll get some hands-on experience. But I guess, why did you stop? Like, what made you want to stop and switch over to the one-on-one world?
I don't think I necessarily wanted to stop. I don't think there was time for it anymore. And I wanted to really shift my focus. The main reason I came here was to coach one-on-one and put myself in a role that the organization wanted me or needed me for. At the time when I came here, it kind of started out being on site more, like helping with on-site group. I had a lot of clients here at one point on site, and it just takes a lot of time being on the floor and watching them train. We were doing a lot more group sessions, like small group sessions with our on-site athletes who are more competitive, right? They're trying to make semifinals. They're trying to qualify for Wadapalooza and compete at a high level. So it was a lot more on the floor hours here, and just there wouldn't really be time, for a coaching class.
So was it more so that you were working at that gym and you wanted to come on board with TTT, and it wasn't necessarily that you wanted to stop classes? Or was there a kind of like I assume that there's a percentage of coaches out there who are coaching classes that might be into, I think I'd rather work one-on-one with people if I had the opportunity.
Yeah, I would say there are definitely different skill sets. Like there's more overlapping than there isn't, but
That was my next question. What
yeah.
makes coaching class different than the one-on-one, whether it be on-site or remote one-on-one?
Yeah, I mean, to answer your question, I came here not to coach class, only because I wanted to leave room for other things, to learn more, to be more present, I guess, with the training think tank side of things of education and one-on-one athletes. I needed to grow my learning and experience there, and that was the main objective. It's not that I came here and I was like, oh, I don't need to coach class anymore because I've done this for so long. I'm really good at it. That's absolutely not the case. But it was just kind of like you only have so many hours in the day. But coming back to coaching class now, I feel like I think it's definitely going to help me be a better one-on-one coach too. So one thing that also happens when you are just coaching athletes remotely and not having as much face-to-face interaction is like your public speaking skills. They don't go away. They're just not as sharp. So even shadowing and coaching some of my first classes here, I'm like, this just feels super uncomfortable in the sense of I feel very rusty. Like I'm talking too much. I don't really know how to manage my time, like going over class or even cutting things too short. And those things I think are just going to take time, more time. But I will say looking at like the cues that I use for people, this is another thing from the L2 I really liked, thinking about the cues that I use for people. I've actually started to implement changes in what I give people in their programming. So what ends up happening in a class, because you're looking at multiple people at once, is the vast majority of cues you use are verbal because it's the least expensive. Like it's the easiest one for me to see you across the room. Hey, Chris, I need to get your feet a little bit wider. I can say that really quickly to you and you can understand what that means and make the fix versus a tactile cue coming over to you and actually, hey, put your feet where my feet are. That's going to make the whole class have to pause and turn their attention to you, or even showing you, hey, Chris, this is what your feet look like. I want them to look like this. Same thing. Everybody has to pause and focus on you. So my tendency a lot of the times is to over-explain. Like, this is what you're doing. This is why it's wrong. This is what I want you to do. And this is why it's right. That's like way too much information for a lot of people. They don't always even care. Like they just want to change their movement and get better. So I've just kind of like taken away a lot of the extra stuff and really just try to give somebody something really short, fast, simple, but effective. And a lot of that stuff is actually like those cues are like, use the analogy of like, talk to me like I'm like 5 years old. Mm-hmm. It's not the complex. It's actually the simple, everything that gets distilled down. It is complex, like what we're trying to do, but what we're trying to change is complex, but what I want you to do is very simple.
I got to imagine there's an art there then to learning the best cues and perfecting those over time so that you're not sacrificing that deeper why of why you're doing it.
100%.
It seems like it could get tricky. Because then are you simplifying just for efficiency's sake to get them in and out? I don't think that's the case in your case, but that feels like there's probably a balance of like, am I trying to just whip people through this or am I perfecting my cues so much to the point where I've got it down? I don't know if I made any sense.
No, I understand what you're saying. Well, it's interesting. One of the pieces of advice they gave us is when you're cueing someone and trying to correct something, you want to get in and out. Like I want to correct what you're doing as fast as possible so we can move on. And it's not that there aren't, like you said, that other stuff isn't important, the why. I would say especially with like really complicated movements that you can't slow down, like gymnastics. Gymnastics can be really hard to see because it's so dynamic and quick versus snatch. I can pause you with a PVC at the position you're missing, right? So being able to verbalize what I'm explaining to you in a muscle up is way harder. It's probably easier for you to see that. So there's just so many examples of different movements in different scenarios, and it 100% is an art. Like, how many people do I have in my class? What's the level and proficiency of those people? I'm coaching now. Like, I'm starting at the bottom. I don't even know people's names. I'm like, I have to learn everyone's names so that I can talk to them. And so that's just like that's my number one priority right now. But beyond that, I don't know their level of ability. Like I'm seeing it with fresh eyes. So it's good, right? Like I'm learning how to coach somebody without knowing anything about them, versus what I do one-on-one is like, I learn everything about you. You know, I know all of your max lifts. I know your strengths and weaknesses in a workout. I know your goals and what we need to work on. So there's absolutely benefit to that skill set I have, and then the deep level of knowledge I have in things. But that has actually become a detriment when I coach class sometimes, because I want to explain to you everything, but I'm like, we got to keep this class moving, and you don't need to know everything right now. You just need to know how to fix this one thing.
Well, I know when I was coaching back in the Stone Age, 2011 ish, there was always there's certain people who are they're in there to just break a sweat, and if they did get better, they'd be stoked, but it's not their main focus. And then you have people who are like in there and they really want to learn and grow. And it's always kind of how do you address that balance when you're coaching people?
Yeah. I mean, it's absolutely, it's a different clientele. Like people who want one-on-one coaching, they want the attention, they have specific goals. Even if their specific goals are to have general fitness, they like that individualization and the communication. A lot of people in class, some people in class also do want that too, but they want they have 60 minutes a day, but they'll come 5 times a week. Some people don't like to be coached, or some people just want to have fun with their friends and get a good sweat in. So that is something that you do have to also learn from understanding the person, and sometimes you learn the hard way. Sometimes you just ask them. But yeah, there are individualizations with your coaching in a group class, and that's the other thing. I mean, one of probably the downsides to group class is like it is so general, and you are trying to achieve general physical preparedness. But like the way we run our training cycles, we still have goals we're working towards. And we want people to PR, we want people to improve. But, if you want to show up and you're like, hey, listen, I just want to turn my brain off. I want to enjoy this class. I don't necessarily want you to push me today. That's fine. Number one is always safety. Like as long as they're moving in a safe manner, like I'm pretty happy. You don't have to refine everything like perfectly as possible. But I think in the long run, the reason there is a coach is because we want you to get better. We want to encourage you to acquire a new skill and set a new PR over a longer period of time. But today, like tomorrow, next month, you're having a bad month, like you just want to come in and put your head down and work hard. That's totally cool.
So when you're working with a one-on-one athlete, whether it's remote or on site, especially if it's on site, you got a lot of, it's just you two. You can do a lot of talking. You probably know them really well, so you know what you can and can't say. When you're in a class, you are on that clock, and you might have 10 to 20 people, and you got to keep it moving. Is there a sense of anxiety with trying to coach something maybe pretty nuanced in that moment and feeling like you're actually delivering something of value and not just pushing them along?
Yeah, for sure. And I remember feeling that heavily when I first started coaching, because I didn't have the knowledge, and I also didn't have the experience. So when you don't have tools in your tool belt, and you haven't seen another coach be able to run someone through a class that is complex, and you have a confined amount of time, you're going to struggle a little bit probably to get there and smooth that out over time. And that's also like, okay, I think that is an art, the time management skill, the aspect. So like in the L2 and CrossFit teaches you lesson plans. So basically you work backwards from the end of class. You have 60 minutes. Like where do I need to kind of start the conditioning if that's coming last, to be able to have a cool down and get people out on time. So you're kind of time blocking things, and you have to understand, how long a 15-minute AMRAP is, but how long does it take to teach these movements? If the class is really big and they have to get 3 things out, that's going to take time. People always need to use the restroom. So yeah, all those things, they happen, and it won't always be perfect, but I think over time you're in so many of these situations, you kind of understand.
You just got back into it and you did it for forever. What makes, in your opinion, a good class coach?
It's not what I used to think it was when I first started
Which
coaching.
was?
Like knowledge, like people, it's important for people to know that I know what I'm doing. And yeah, I mean, I think that's a huge misconception, not just for class coaches, for any coaches. Like, but I think they, I think it's like just caring about the people, you know, and being present in the class. Like, it's easy to be just read the whiteboard. People, if they've been taking class, they know what they're doing, right? Coaching people actually takes a lot more energy. Like the soft skills around the class, it might not even be during the class. It can also, because there's usually rest periods during strength, of knowing what people do for a living, like if they have a family, if they want to engage in a conversation about nutrition, sleep, hygiene, like those things are just as important, if not more, than the time they're spending with you in the gym. But the bulk of the time is like, hey, I'm here to take care of you for this hour. This is your hour to put down your phone and engage with other human beings and focus on yourself. And not a lot of people have that in their lives anymore.
It is kind of crazy to think that the hour that they're at the gym might be the one time of the day that they're not on their phone.
Probably, right? Like how many times throughout your day are you not engaging with technology, like a computer or phone, for a full hour? Probably not any. Like, even if the one-on-one athletes out there, like, they're checking their phone between sets, it just doesn't happen. We're connected all the time. You're going on a run, if you have a Garmin watch, like, that's technology, like, just completely unplugged. But in a CrossFit class, a full hour, you might be completely unplugged.
I hadn't thought about that like that.
Yeah.
And I'm sure some people sneak over and check their phone in between like a break or something, but it is kind of crazy that that's even something in 2025 that we're like, wow.
I know. I mean, sleeping, obviously, we're not engaged, but yeah, it's so different. I mean, even from starting coaching in 2011 to now, it is more similar than different, because the structure still looks the same. We're teaching the same movements, but I would say, like, back then, I mean, CrossFit was just newer, so I think there was like way more acceptable bad movement, because not a lot of people moved well. I mean, just think about watching the games back then and them doing like
What
Amanda.
do you mean by acceptable bad movement?
Because the games athletes were also just not moving as well as they do now. Like a snatch, a ring muscle up, everything. Because it's not that people didn't know what they were supposed to do, but I think a lot of improvement is learned behavior. Not only you practicing things, but you seeing other people doing things. So at the highest level of the sport, the games athletes were still not moving nearly as well as they do today. So it's like you didn't know what you didn't know. If you walked into regionals, like the best athletes in the sport, and you watch back some of those videos, you're like, oof, like that didn't look so hot. Yeah. Not to mention the workouts were still really hard. Like, I was just looking back at some of the regionals and open workouts from when I first started. So my first year at regionals was 2012 on a team. I hadn't even been doing CrossFit for 2 years. They threw out 70-pound dumbbell snatches for women, 135-pound hang cleans. I was like, dog, I can't snatch 70. And not only that, we only had in our gym like metal up to that weight, right? Because dumbbells are expensive. And I'm like, I'm going to die if I try to put this over my head. So like the sport has evolved in so many ways, but a lot of the programming and a lot of the tasks they gave people back then would be just as hard now. I think everyone they understand what the stimulus is going to be. They're probably more prepared. Like the elites are more prepared for men to snatch 100 and women to snatch 70. But you throw that out in a class, that's still going to be super, super challenging, right, for those guys. But yeah, I mean,
hold on, let me pause you. You said that you used to think it was knowledge, and now you think it's caring, and maybe the perfect picture would be knowledge plus caring.
Sure.
Why do you care?
Why do I care about coaching? Why do I care about people?
If caring's the key ingredient.
Yeah, I don't know if you can teach caring. I think I think you can make people aware of how you're presenting yourself. And I'm not saying you have to come in and ask every single person something personal about themselves. There's a vibe and an aura I think you give off when you're engaging with a human. Like if I came in and I was very militant about my coaching and it was just business, like I only care what you're doing performance-wise, I don't think some people might take to that, but I think the vast majority of people would be like, this is just how she is, but she's never gonna really understand who I am, why I'm here, and maybe help me with other things. But they know that I think it's really important. They move well and they follow instructions. And that's some people's style. I think expressing caring can also be different for certain people. Like, you don't have to ask people about their feelings all the time. In fact, that's probably another thing that I've stopped trying to ask people. I constantly would say, how do you feel today? That's not always the best thing to ask somebody. You know, you're bringing awareness, especially if they might interpret it as like, oh, I must look like I'm sad or I must not be moving well. It can be impactful at times, especially I think if people are struggling, like somebody just seems off. Maybe it can help them be a little vulnerable in me communicating, hey, like, I'm noticing something's off with you today. And if they're like, yeah, I'm just having a bad day, I'm not feeling very well, then we can change something. But sometimes I think it actually, it can backfire in the sense of like, we don't always need to bring attention to everything, right? You're here to work out. And if you can walk in the door and you're here to take my class, I expect you to give your best that day. And there's a sliding spectrum of what that is. You're not going to be at your best every day, but you're here and you're going to do the work, and that's what we're going to try to accomplish. But yeah, I don't know if I answered your question, caring.
Yeah, I think caring, like you said, is different for everybody.
Yeah.
And I think you just kind of know it when you see it. When you see someone in any field, you can kind of, it radiates whether they care about the job they're doing or if it's just showing up.
Yeah, it can even be small.
Like some people think caring is like being like real sweet and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I think caring about your position as the, whether it's the gym owner or the coach, it's just something you kind of, like I said, radiates. You could tell if they have it or they don't.
I think a small thing, what I try to do is make sure, ideally in every piece of the class, if there's a strength and conditioning, but minimally throughout the whole class, I need to engage with every member at least once, like giving them a cue, or talking to them in some capacity. That can be harder to do than you think sometimes, because some people, like I said, don't.
It goes quick.
Yeah, and some people actually just prefer to kind of be on their own in their own corner. They define in the L2 caring and like presence and attitude, which I think are two great words. Like, you have a presence as a coach, you're leading the class. Your attitude also needs to be positive. I mean, you don't, like you said, need to be over the top, super extroverted, especially if that's not how I am naturally. But I do have to have a good attitude, especially people love to complain in CrossFit classes. Like, sometimes it's just a way to relieve some stress all the time. Yeah.
In the world.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. That's even better.
Yeah.
People like to complain about everything. I think it's a natural thing that we do as humans.
Yes.
You have to shut that down. Like, that's not the time for this.
Yeah.
And
I don't even think most people do it and strictly to just be negative. I think it's the easiest next thing besides how's the weather. It's like you're trying to get some common ground, and if we could both bitch about something, boom, now we're talking. And so I think a lot of people just put it out there to have that quick bond, and then they can move from there. And it's just like, man, if we could just nip that in the bud, because like I'm sure you would go on to say, is that it has, even if that's how you're doing it to get a quick bond, let's say, it has trickle down effects on how you're thinking about things.
Yeah, I mean, I myself have definitely used self-deprecation to lower the expectation, right? I'm fearful that I'm not going to do well in this workout, Or even the opposite. I'm fearful that people are going to put pressure on me to do well because these are movements I'm good at. I'm going to make a self-deprecating joke to lower the expectation because in the event I don't do well, there's like almost an excuse. I think that can sometimes be effective, especially for people who have just anxiety, right? You take the pressure off. But to your point, I think it can also have a trickle-down effect, especially when you're in a very social group of people who love to also do that or gossip. But that's like poison. Like that spreads, you know? And so you have to find a balance. You have to know the people, and it's not like you need to shut them down and say, hey, you can't have social hour or joke around. But there is a level of professionalism that we need to have. There is a level of there's certain classes here for sure that love to be more social. And I don't want to take that away. But we also need to run on time. And you need to work hard and focus on what you're doing. It's not the same as like you just come into the gym with your friends and you guys chat and you work out for about 15% of the time. So.
Do you think it's one of the benefits of a CrossFit environment where there are usually multiple coaches so that people get different looks? And it's like, I'm not only, unless a gym has one coach at one class time every time. But I think a lot of the ones I've dropped into and been at, it's like coaches kind of rotate. So you're not always with that same person, and you are kind of in the net getting a lot of different looks. Yeah,
I think that's super beneficial. I remember one of the gyms I worked at, we had a full-time coaching staff, a lot, I forget, like 10 coaches. It was awesome. We also had really big classes, so we had 2 people on at the same time. Because if you have 20 plus people in a small space, that can be difficult to organize. But the owner would intentionally rotate the schedule. And sometimes that's hard for the coaches, especially if you're full time, you're like, okay, well, you're expected to change. But if you're part time, some people can only coach certain classes. And so you're kind of pigeonholed into that. If you can rotate it, absolutely. Because different people, right, come in the morning and the night. There's different cycles, and you can have biases where it's like, hey, every Tuesday we're always doing upper body pressing, whatever. And then you're even coaching maybe upper body pressing for like 3 to 6 months. It's like, okay, maybe try the snatch or the back squat. But yeah, absolutely. Like I'm sure that there's athletes that have, or members that have coaching preferences, but I think you can learn something from everybody. Like, it's just like our teachers, right? Our when you take classes, like you do have I don't even know what they have anymore. Social studies, math, like education has changed so much, but you're going to have your preferences, and that's just reality. But so even going back to the cueing, like one of the common faults is it's in the front rack position, people dropping their elbows, whether they don't even have a great position to start, or it gets heavier, they get tired and they drop down. So how many times are you going to go on the floor and hear elbows up? Like so many. I think people just stop even listening to it because they've heard it so many times. So, okay, can I think of 2 to 3 cues that would also get someone to bring their elbows up, that they would hear it a different way? It's kind of like if your spouse has been telling you the same thing for your whole life, and then somebody else says it in a different way, but they actually take.
Or, sorry, I got a tangent. Or you said spouse says it for forever, and then someone says it a different way, or just someone different says it the exact same way. I've had that. So,
yes. Yes.
You just don't want to hear it from your significant other.
Yeah. Or exactly. I mean, that for sure. Or that could apply to coaching too. It's just confirmation, right? That, hey, this person's been saying this forever. This is still an issue. So for that reason, I would say rotating coaches can be helpful. It's just coming from a different person. Maybe it's said a different way or approached differently. But there are infinite ways to coach a movement. There's infinite ways to triage a problem. Even for me, on a different day, I might just warm up the snatch differently. And that's also what keeps you engaged in coaching. Like if it is like Groundhog's Day and it's the same stuff all the time, it gets extremely boring for everybody involved. So I think you need to find ways to do your research and be creative. because it's easy to just fall into complacency. But that would be another reason I'm coaching again. Like, coaching class, you could say in many ways is really simple compared to one-on-one. But in the equal amount of ways, I could say it's way harder, because it's almost like performing. Like, I'm public speaking, I'm on a clock, I'm held to some confined restrictions that are sometimes downsides. Like, I'm not programming the workouts. I don't always know the people's abilities. I need to think on the fly. I need to manage, a lot going on at once. I need to put out fires. But those are all great life skills that apply to anything you do. So yeah, it's one-on-ones more specific. The coach to athlete ratio is 1-to-1. Group classing is more broad. The coach to athlete ratio is maybe 1-to-5, 1-to-10, something like that. We're all doing the same thing, just at different levels of ability and potentially in different ways. But that is what CrossFit is. And I think that's why people have always gravitated towards it. Like, it's infinitely scalable. For a class, like, people getting attached to going RX or whatever. So maybe RX is what the open workouts would be, RX. Like, yes, that should be your beacon, or that should be what you're potentially striving for if that's important to you. But that's not the expectation. The expectation is actually that you're going to scale it because the stimulus matters. You need to stay safe, all of those things. And that is some of the magic of coaching, is like getting people to buy into those things and like why they're important, and also be able to enjoy their experience.
I feel like that's been since the inception of CrossFit problem, where people just want to go RX all the time, and you're having to constantly be like, no, that's what we're working towards, or maybe you have it. Yeah. Do you feel like since you've been back, you've noticed any?
Oh yeah, that will never change. I mean, human beings have egos, like especially people that probably do CrossFit. They want to come in here and.
Do you think any coaches out there at affiliates have solved that problem, where they've been like, I've figured out how to master the human psyche so that they listen to what I say and stop going RX when they shouldn't? Not by force, but because I was such a good coach that I convinced you that you should look at it differently.
I think there are probably gyms that have created cultures, and this is how it solved the problem. You create a culture where people understand that is not the expectation. Then, like, for instance, Crash, like J.R. Howell's gym, they probably have some of the most aggressive programming for a general class I've ever seen, because it matches the level of fitness in his gym, which it's taken him years to build that. But just because there's legless rope climbs and, heavy squat snatches, somebody who's a beginner doesn't have the capacity or that skill set. They already know what they're going to change it to. Like, they're not going to try for that. Now, maybe that's actually a bad example because it's so far apart, like a legless rope climb and a banded strict pull-up. But even just say it's a high-volume chest to bar, and maybe I have some chest to bar, but they fall apart, and then I either can't do them anymore or I have to go down to singles, and it's like, that's not what this is supposed to be. That is actually probably the harder part of scaling, when they actually have the movement, but that they're going to get so fatigued that it's going to disappear, and then they're either going to be standing there or they're not going to reach the standard anymore, and they're going to count the reps. Those are the harder ones to solve. But going back, if you have developed a culture where you are teaching people what like scaling or adjusting means and why it's important, and they actually have buy-in and understand and follow those rules because you hold them accountable to them, they will start doing it on their own. But I think that starts from the top. It has to be very consistent throughout all the coaches that they interact with. And maybe you also need to present the options up front in the explanation. I think that's actually been a change here that's helped people. Like, hey, if you don't want to snatch today because you can't, like your shoulder hurts, or maybe you just don't want to snatch today, it's a hard movement, you would rather develop your strength today, instead of snatching, you're doing front squats or something, or back squats, and it's a better use of time. Like, is that a pretty large scale from snatching? Yeah, for sure. But would that be better for somebody? And instead of them going through the whole snatch warm up and then having to figure out something on the fly, or just snatching maybe an empty PVC the other time, the whole time, like maybe doing some strength would be more effective. And yeah, so everybody has different rules in their gym. I think having some discussion between the members and the staff and what they believe like should be the standard is worthwhile use of time, and then being very consistent and relentless on constantly like explaining those things and holding people to it. But that's the hard part. It's the implementation.
Yeah.
It's not the...
Do you think there's a case to be made to purposely write some work? Let's say you have an idea where you got the RX and then your gym is buying into scaling, to just throw in some workouts sometimes where they could do it RX and they don't have to scale it? Get them those small wins?
Yeah, I mean, yes.
'Cause not every workout has anything, you might be able to do a run.
Yeah.
Or something that doesn't have a lot of skills that it could still be RX.
100%.
I don't even know why I'm thinking that.
Yeah, no, I mean, no, I agree. Like, I think for some people, they feel constantly having to scale something is a bad thing. Like, oh, I can't ever get there. But it's hard. Like even we had a workout the other day that was rowing, air squats, and push-ups. Like super, super simple. But what movement in there at high volumes repeatedly is going to deteriorate? It's going to be the push-ups. But so this is what I did. In the warm-up, I went over all the movements. I had everybody perform them with pausing on my command. I showed them what a good push-up looks like. I showed them what a bad push-up looks like. And I had them perform good push-ups. And I watched everybody before we started. I said, okay, all of you guys can perform good push-ups. The people that you could tell they were struggling in the warm-up, that's probably going to break down. I think it was like 4 intervals of 3-minute AMRAPs in sets of 15, right? So the density is really high. That also matters. If it was like 5 or 10, some people can hang on to that. So, you tell people like, hey, I don't want you doing push-ups in sets of 1 or 2. We need to be trying to do these in sets of 3 to 5. So giving them an expectation, not only like, hey, can you do push-ups? But, hey, you need to be able to do push-ups in sets of 3 to 5, and we're going to be doing, you can see this is going to be like 5 to 6 rounds. So you'll be doing.
So you're highlighting something that I think now we're talking about, you being one-on-one and you being a class coach, and you were saying that class coaching could have a lot of good carryover into one-on-one. I think something that might be good for one-on-one that comes over to class is I think people who do one-on-one, and especially at a higher level where you're coaching a lot of people, you probably have a better understanding of where things break down and things like that, so that when you are coaching a class, you have that knowledge at hand better than maybe
100%. Like,
not to say that no one does on the class coaching. I'm sure people are doing it forever. They're gonna whatever, but
yeah, I agree, and that has also just come over time. Like, even when I came to TTT, I had coached some Masters games and I had a bunch of regional semifinal athletes. So I had like an okay understanding of like what those levels took, but I did not, what it took to get to those levels. I did not really grasp the game's elite level. So I came here, I think my first open, I'm judging like Noah or something on wall walks and double unders. Wall walks had just come out in the open. So it was a new standard. Like, I definitely messed it up the first time judging him, and he had to repeat the workout, I believe. But even the cadence of his double unders, counting his double unders, estimating what scores someone like him would put out, I was like flabbergasted. Do people use that word anymore?
You just did.
So now, with more experience at the elite level over time, like, I can look at an open workout and I probably could guess pretty well like what an elite athlete would finish and subsequent levels. So that experience has helped me, where I can look at something and understand the the levels to it, because there are levels.
Just being able to break down like the why, the why behind the workout, the intention, or what are you trying to get out of it, and then being able to say, oh, when I saw you doing the warm up, I could tell you're not going to meet the intention of this. Do you think a lot of the coaches know the intentions of their workouts? That might be part of the problem if they don't.
I think here they do. I don't know about everywhere. I know we do have TTT affiliate programming, and we use that programming for our classes with some adjustments from time to time. But that's why we have all those notes for people who might not know. So you can read those and understand. It also definitely helps to do the workouts or watch the workouts. Like, the first class of the day is always going to be the guinea pig, like that. And not only in scores, like where's the bar, or like what's the average score, but how you refine your coaching for the subsequent classes.
Does class coaching translate to coaching elites at all?
Maybe in the variety of personalities that I engage with. Like, in a class, you meet so many different people that communicate differently. But a lot of CrossFit athletes or CrossFit members are type A people. Like, that across the board, I feel like is kind of a commonality. But the way that they will talk to you might change, right? Like, some people don't say a lot, but when they say something, like, they mean it and it's clear. Some people express themselves through their body language more than words. Some people use, like we were talking about self-deprecation. Like, some people use words differently to express their emotions.
Red ones, green ones, purple ones, blue ones. How does this go back to elite coaching, though?
Well, I'm just saying, coaching different people, different personalities in class, and when people are in the thick of it, like in very difficult, uncomfortable circumstances, it's actually not that different. Like, we are all kind of doing the same things at different levels at the end of the day. I mean, so elites just they have more challenges, I would say. Like, especially if they're trying to be a professional athlete. There's way more stuff that they have to juggle than a class member. It's not just performing well in a workout. What it takes to get there is a lot different. Like,
so I guess another way to look at this question, though, would be like, does it translate to coaching elites? So if we went out into the world and went to all the different affiliates and pulled, let's even say we just asked who's your best coach here, how many of those people are going to be able to carry over and then quickly have success with an elite?
I think if you are good at teaching, seeing, and correcting, and you can kind of upgrade that knowledge and experience and have more tools to utilize, you could absolutely coach elite athletes. You're just going to need a lot more tools and a lot more experience, because there's so many more movements that they need to perform at a high level, and how they interact gets more complex.
Now it probably comes more about programming.
Correct.
So if you were following someone's affiliate programming,
correct,
now you're handling it.
Yeah. I mean, you're in a group class, so you're just not going to see as many reps of the high skill movements that you're going to see all the time with the elites. The ring muscle ups, the bar muscle ups, the handstand walking, strict handstand push-ups, heavy lifting under fatigue, mixed with really high power machines. Like, everything the elites are doing is like crazy fast, probably, compared to a class athlete. But you can also say they're similar. The points of performance are always going to be the same. Like, I need to see full range of motion, and it's still going to be similar movement faults. Like, this person in the bottom of their snatch, they internally rotate their shoulders. Like, they're collapsing because they can't keep their chest up. They're losing their midline stability. Like, all of those things are going to be the same, but it's just in a different context, and probably with more complexity.
So I just walked myself into a question that I think might be kind of cool. Does being able to program CrossFit workouts at a moderate to high level make you a better coach, you think? Like a hands-on coach? You know, because sometimes we like wrap those words into one. Whereas, you know, maybe if you're a affiliate class coach, you're not necessarily the one programming. But most often, the people who are doing one-on-one coaching, we call it one-on-one coaching, but you're also writing the program. So the question is does having a good knowledge of how to write properly programs for elites or even GPP translate into you being a better coach, you think?
I think it depends how you define being a good coach, but does it help you become a better coach? Is it like another? Yes.
You know, if all things being equal, this one knows how to program, this one doesn't, but they're good at all the cues and all the other things we put in the bucket, is the person who knows how to program going to deliver a better coaching product out there on the floor?
Yes, I do think so. I think that you still want to, you can have all the information in the world and understand all the complexity. If you cannot distill it down into simple things and be able to communicate it effectively, you will not be an effective coach. It's like having a teacher that was really, really freaking smart, but they just could not teach well.
Yeah.
So, but if you were really good at programming, I would have to say that's going to help your coaching. It's also about how you use it. Like there is still a difference between how you use it and how you communicate it. If you can teach somebody something in person, if I can give you a presentation of like how to learn the snatch really well and you can do it really well, there's no reason I can't do that. I shouldn't be able to do that remotely, like in a one-on-one setting, right? But if I can type a bunch of words to you because I know what a snatch, how I would explain a snatch verbally, but then you come to me in person and I can't teach you in person, does that mean that I'm a good coach?
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is I do think there are different skill sets there. Like I think you can be a good programmer, let's put it this way, a good programmer and not a good coach. And that part of that might be what I'm explaining. Like, can you explain things well so people understand it?
The skill of communicating.
But I also think it goes back to caring and presence and attitude. You can be really smart, but if you treat a human being like a robot, you're not going to be an effective coach because we're not robots. Like,
I think that's the biggest thing that people don't understand, especially like here. You know, we've both been here. 2017 is when I came on, and you think, hey, it's all the science and these guys know their stuff, and that's definitely true. But it really is more so at the end of the day, the thing that, especially in our one-on-one, is like working and with that person specifically as a human.
yes,
Like all the non-program, non-CrossFit stuff that comes with that one human and the interaction with the coach is the most powerful part.
100%. I mean, so we have all these games athletes at the elite level. None of them are probably doing the exact same program, but they're all able to acquire this elite level of fitness. So there can't always be one way to do anything. They have different coaches, different programs. If I gave you and somebody else and you're the same level of ability, or even just say you had a twin, right? And you guys have all the same metrics, you literally have the same DNA, and you were brought up the same, and maybe, and I think they do a lot of twin studies on stuff like this to figure it out, like how somebody learns and how somebody adapts to things. But I can't tell you the amount of times I have tried to use something I use for someone else on somebody that's worked, and it doesn't work. But it also does a lot of the times too. Like there are progressions we have that are most of the time effective, but are they all the time effective? No. And maybe one of the reasons is like that person just was like going through something hard in their life and they had a lot of stress. And you wouldn't know that unless you know how to pick up on things like that. Hey, like their results seem a little bit off. They're not giving me as much feedback, or it's coming in really late. Maybe I should check in with this person. And then you have a conversation with them and you find out they are going through stuff like, hey, maybe it's better that we back off some of the intensity or some of the volume so you can get better quality of training, and until like your cup's not overflowing. So you're still working with people that need adjustments, and it's not just about follow this perfect template with great periodization so you'll super compensate at the perfect time to peak in a competition. Like there's principles to that, but everybody needs, I think, adjustments along the way.
Which could go back to class coaching, and if we can get out of this, paradigm of feeling like you have to follow the RX, and you're more open to then you can have that relationship with all the athletes on site and better help scale them in times by just knowing the human. Yeah. So I think, one of the best ways to learn something is by teaching. And so for even athletes out there who might be listening to this, do you think there's value in just doing an L1, maybe upgrading to L2, even if you don't really plan to coach?
Yes, I think doing the L2 would be hard if you're not practicing coaching. Because
that one's specific to how you communicate to athletes.
Yeah, but you could still do it. I mean, I think there was a guy in the L2 that I think had only gotten his L1 8 months prior, and I was like, wow, that's kind of crazy. I would be nervous to do that because I learn the best from doing, as I think most people do. But yeah, I absolutely think it'd be beneficial. L1 is like, you have to do the L1 or at least read it and understand it to know where you're starting from. It's like the building block. The L2 to me is where you really learn how to coach. And to get better at those things, you have to practice the skill. So it was timely. I took the L2, and now I'm able to apply all those things into what I'm doing right now, which it's like.
Did you come out of that fired up? Like, I remember when I took my L1 back in the day, it was like, I was fired up.
Yeah, I was fired up to get better. I think in the past, when I had less experience, it was more I needed confirmation that I was doing a good job. Or confirmation that what I knew was correct. So other people saying, like, whether or not they say it, like, oh yeah, my understanding of this concept is accurate. And now it's more about doing. It's more about refining. Like, can I get better at this? Because there's really nothing I can't get better at. And that's also the same process the athletes do. Like, can you get better at the things you think you're already good at? So watching the L2 staff.
Who do you have?
Teach. Who was in there?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it was Chuck Carswell.
Nice.
Oh,
that's okay. You don't have to.
I know. I feel bad now.
Chuck did my L1 back in the day.
Yeah. Do you know Chuck lives in Marietta?
I
know. I didn't know. I think I might have had Chuck before, maybe for one of my certs, but I can't remember. I was based out of Pennsylvania, so I did my L2 previously at CrossFit King of Prussia with Amy Lyons, and then I had an L1 in, I think, either Morristown or Morristown, New Jersey. And Coach Jen, yes, Coach Jen, I remember that. Yes, Coach Jen. I think she's like Garden City CrossFit or something in New York. I might be butchering that. She's been around for a long time. But I've seen a lot of these folks around. Like, I've seen a lot of them judging the games for many, many years. And, yeah, they're great coaches.
You know what would be crazy
Greg,
to
I think
try?
His name was Greg.
Is if you got a lot of the L2 staff and then you opened up a box and it was only them. Like, how awesome would that CrossFit gym be?
Yeah, that would be nuts. I've watched some videos. Like, they have videos.
Because they're teaching every week, so I imagine them teaching you guys how to teach every week. They're probably like...
Yeah, they have videos online of, like, watch an L4 coach teach a class or watch an L4 coach teach toes to bar muscle-ups. Like, those are the types of education videos that class coaches should be watching. Because, like I said, I might coach a bar muscle up one way, and then there's like so many other ways to do it or other things to see. Like I don't always see the same things as other people, and you just need reps of those things. And I do very well from learning from other people do things.
I know we're supposed to wrap up soon, but do you think any box out there does .com programming?
For sure.
Just like straight .com, not cap.
I think Amy from KOP, and correct me if I'm wrong, was doing it for a while. I don't know if she still does it, but yeah, absolutely. So the
reason I ask is because, as we know, it could just be deadlift 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, and that's it for the day.
That's how they teach programming.
The reason I was saying that, I was like, that gives you so much time to really coach and then also do the work.
Okay, so that's how they teach their programming lecture. I mean, they encourage you to simplify. Like when we were
do you think people would pay for that?
Oh, the programming?
Because that sounds awesome to me as like being able to coach.
I don't know
and
if
teach.
they're gonna pay for that program, but they could pay for like the lesson plans. Like,
sorry, no. What I meant by that is, do you think your members are going to show up every day?
I mean, there are gyms that do that. I absolutely know for a fact, and they're effective. So, again, it comes back to the culture. Like, what do people want? It's not easy sometimes to coach a strength and a conditioning if they're both complex and if they're long or they need to work up heavy. Yeah. You absolutely have to think about those things. You run out of time to coach, and then it just becomes running people through the class. And, there's going to be days where that happens. Like it happens. There's also an argument is like, if you want to get people fit and improve at things, there has to be a progressive overload. I'm not saying you can't effectively fill an entire class with just deadlifting. I think the simple movements are actually one of the hardest ones to teach because, but
I think people over time, and even back in the day, you have CrossFit and then you have a Metcon, and people associate the Metcon with being the CrossFit.
Correct.
And it's so widespread that at this point, you just almost call it CrossFit. Even when I know that there's the difference, it's just like it's just kind of like unless I'm sitting here explaining and pointing out that I know the difference, it might just be easier to just be like, well, that's CrossFit.
Yeah.
But not having a day where it's just strength, having a day where it's just strength, that's also
very effective.
CrossFit.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But they think it's just the Metcon, or a lot of people just think it's the Metcon.
Yeah. I think that's a misconception. I mean, there's days where it's just strength, or like it can be strength and then accessory work afterwards that builds on the strength lift. And I think that's extremely effective to do sometimes, and probably we should do that more often. Yes, I get people want to get their heart rate up, get those endorphins going, but that's not necessarily always the best.
All right, 20 rep back squat.
Yeah. I've done, oh man, those are some of the worst. I've done those.
Yeah,
those are
brutal.
nasty. Yeah, I think there is an argument to keeping things simple and allowing more time to coach. But I also think there's an argument in people need volume to get better at some things. And there's a reason that elite athletes have the highest capacity and they train the most volume. Like, you get to a certain level, you have to be extremely volume tolerant, and you have to also be able to train concurrently, like train strength at the same time you're training your endurance. And if you separate those things too much or simplify them where you're not doing enough of something, you're not going to make it. You're not going to create an adaptation. But class is different in that capacity where, like, that's probably one of the largest differences. A lot of it's strength and skill, but even just capacity. Like, you can only fit so much in an hour, even if you did it effectively. So, yeah.
Well, Perrin, thanks for coming on today.
Thanks,
I hope
Chris.
you have lots of fun coaching.
Yes.
And maybe we'll do a follow-up in like a year, not a specific episode, but
see if I'm still doing it.
See if you're still doing it and how much you've changed.
Yeah. Thank you.
See ya.
Bye.